And
we're live.
Here we are.
Start going live. Woo!
It's Sir Rithkin. I'm here with Sir Cohen, and we're here to interview Duke Ed from Atenveldt, and I'm excited because he has a pretty cool backstory and story in the SCA, and he told me nothing's off limits, so we're gonna delve deep. Anyway, so usually, I mean, you've seen some of these, so usually we start with like your origin story. So if you want to start us there, that would be great.
Like how I got started in the SCA.
Yeah, how you found it.
Yeah.
And that kind of thing.
So I came to the SCA actually via a separate organization called the Empire of Chivalry and Steel. So
Okay.
When I was like 15 years old, I found this group here in Tucson, where I live, before I found the SCA. So and they were an offshoot organization, and they fought with live steel instead of rattan. But they had a really pretty cool relationship with a lot of people. We had some really nice folk down here in the South that were still pleasant, a lot of them. And later on, I learned there had been a lot of kind of like ugliness in the barony, and that's kind of one of the reasons I think we had a split, right? And that was where I started as a young kid. They took me to my first Estrella War. Like, we were able to go as our group to Estrella War, and I did like some authorization stuff, and I met Sir Justin here in Triscathir and a couple other nights, and they were so welcoming to me, and they were so fun. This 15, 16-year-old kid, and I'm getting to go to Estrella, and I'm fighting greatsword, and I just was, I couldn't get over it. I mean, from as far as I could see from my left to as far as I could see to my right, it was just people that wanted to kill me, and as a 16-year-old kid, back when, this is the before times before kids couldn't fight for a while there. I was able to just do it all the time, and I loved it. And that kind of was my hook. But I had a lot of friends still in the ECS, so I played over there for a long time. And because I just never really got a lot of, I didn't have a lot of relationships in the SCA for a while. So I played over there, and in my period of time in the ECS, I was actually king. I became knight. I became equivalent of a pelican there, and had been on their board of directors and all that kind of stuff. And then I hadn't lost, and in this period of time was actually when I lost the vision of my right eye. And we could come back to that because that's a story in of itself. But I had actually kept fighting live steel, and I kept doing all this stuff, and I hadn't lost the tournament in 2-3 years, I think. Every tournament I entered, I won. And I got this notion in my head that I wanted to go be king in the SCA. And I wanted to go fight against a wider variety of techniques and style. And I luckily got introduced to some really good people that kind of helped me broach more into the SCA. And this is in my early 20s. And then I really started kind of taking off.
Is the ECS limited to Arizona?
At one point they were in Arizona, Texas, California, Nevada. They were all over. But it's never, I don't think any of those groups have ever really reached the size that potential they could. In all human groups, there's politics and there's reasons, and they have a really neat thing. And I learned a lot. I mean, a lot of my techniques and style come from that, because their fighting style is all clean, unobstructed blow counts, right? So it became a lot about finesse and technique. And so I learned a lot about, there's a lot of my fighting comes from that. And so I don't discredit that period of time in my life at all. I had some really amazing people that taught me some stuff, and I learned a lot about how to run an organization and how to, kind of be a king. So by the time I was in the SCA, I became a king. I was really able to. But my SCA road was not easy. I mean, one thing about the SCA, I'm sure Sir Cohen can talk about, you even yourself, we like to train our own, I think. So if you come in and you're really good, it's like, well, we didn't teach that guy this. Why is he so good, right? And there seems to be always that edge. And what everybody didn't understand was that this period of time, when I come in the SCA, I'm a professional wrestler. I'm an MMA fighter. I'm doing all these other things. SEA fighting is just like a hobby for me. I really wanted to do it. I wanted to be a king. I wanted to be a knight. I really loved what we do. And the medieval recreation lifestyle is always will always be part of my life. This is probably the first time in my life where I haven't gone to an event at least once a month for, since I was 15 years old.
Right.
Even when I was in the Army, I was still going to events all the time. So, it's a really weird thing, and my SEA origin is that. But I had some really good people, but it's interesting. I'm different in that I came from the ECS to the SCA, but I had some like really great people down here, like Sir Matthias, who was in the West, rest in peace, and like also Sir Justin here in Trisketer, who's kind of a iconic guy. If you ever met him, he's something. So, and they were always just so open to me, and they helped me a lot, and I stuck around because of those guys.
Did you end up squiring to somebody?
Yeah, I did. I actually squired to Duke Sir Matthias. Okay. And I was with him for a long time. And I was with him until the day I won crown. So, and that was, we had a falling out kind of before then and even after, but and that's a long that's a long story in of itself, right?
You don't
but
have to tell the falling out.
Yeah, but I loved him a lot, and I still will. But I learned a lot about being a knight from him, both good and bad. But I was also blessed in that I met Duke Ruther in that period of time, and which then I also met my wife, his sister, Osa, the Wonder Woman, and she and him really kind of helped refine me and kind of finish. He really, I wouldn't be half of who I am in the SCA if it wasn't for what he taught me.
Yeah.
He taught me really like everything about the good side, like all the pro wrestling, the promos, and being able to talk and all that. And it was like, no, this is stuff you really want to do, Ed. Like, this is who you are. Don't hide it. And he really kind of gave me a lot of tutelage that I didn't get. I mean, it wasn't fighting. He didn't have to teach me fighting, right? I just needed to know how to matriculate my way through the SCA. Some people call it a game. I don't call it a game. It's just a lifestyle. It's a club. We participate. We don't play. The only game we play is the fighting, right? That's the sport. Everything else around it is what surrounds the sport.
Great.
At least for the fighting. It's not all about the fighting. It's just mostly about the fighting for me.
And the SCA is like community. That's why it's not a game. It's people, real lives, real relationships.
Listen, if you do something dickheaded, you can't just push reset.
Right.
You got to own your mistakes. Like, you can't go reset your skills just like you could in like World of Warcraft or some other game you play on your Xbox. You can't just turn off the power and say, well, got to make a new character. I mean, you can rename yourself and do all this stuff, but the number one thing to say sometimes if you done screw up is either learn from it. You've messed up, you failed at something, learn from it, learn how to succeed, and own your mistake, right? Don't excuse it for somebody else's behavior or something else. Just own your mistake. And that's fighting too. My banner has always said victories through failure, right? And so if you own those things that you make, those errors in front of you, then maybe you won't make them again. You might, you hope, right? So sometimes those errors are actually not errors, but and that's a tricky thing to learn. But yeah, I mean, I had my 20s. There's plenty of dickhead things I did in my 20s, I'm sure.
I think all of us did dickhead things in our 20s. I think that's what the early 20s is about.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of gray hair, in my beard now, so.
That's not from your kids?
Yeah, no, maybe, I don't know. My 11-year-old daughter, who's almost as tall as me already, is gonna give me a lot of gray hair. So, yeah.
So I hear what you're saying. Like when you come in and you already have like a skill set, and like people don't understand that you've developed that skill set for like 10 years. because they haven't seen it. It's like they have an attitude with you that you haven't like paid your dues, right? And
yeah, or that you're cheating. Nah, there's no way this guy's this good.
I don't know.
And oh no, it honestly got happened. So
Okay.
yeah, no, this is a crazy. Okay, I'm gonna name drop some guys because they were great. They really saved me. I already talked about Uther, but there was other guys in my kingdom at the time, like Sir Roger. I don't know if you know, but Koska who lives in the Outlands now. He was in Atenveldt, and he's one of my all-time favorite people. Him and then Matt Wilson. His SCA name is slipping me right now. I'm sorry, but those three guys were like really like sit me down kind of thing, and we're like, people think you're cheating, because they just don't see it. You're blocking everything, and like I was trying to play by SCA rules, which was anything like it had to be hard enough. It had to be hard. The shots had to be stout, and I went and was like, all right, well, I'll play by ECS rules instead. And I actually switched and just started playing. And I took all my armor off my legs. And I still to this day don't wear any armor on my legs. The greaves I wear on my shins are just because that hurts. And Koska made me some greaves.
He makes beautiful greaves.
Yeah, he made one of them. I have one of the very first pair of greaves that he ever made, but I love him to death, and he made the greatest statement because I was like, I'm just going to take anything that touches me, any clean unobstructed shot, I'll just start taking. And so I just stripped off all the armor, and everything I started wearing was just for show. If you saw it, it was just there to make me look pretty.
Right.
And he was like, what they don't realize is they're fools for making you do this because you're so athletic. You're one of the most athletic people in the society, and now we're going to make you go be better. We're idiots. Right. I had a tumultuous ride up. I wasn't an easy guy through the circle. I started fighting when I was 16, and I didn't get knighted until that's my first reign, 2004, I think. Right? It's 2004, 2005. I can't remember. And that was an unbelted win, right, against Duke Aaron Graves in the finals. And there was a three-way final, but the final shot was against him, right? And
Atenveldt's like the West and Ontario, right? Like an unbelted winning crown is pretty unheard of.
People thought it had never happened in Atenveldt. Like people had thought it never had happened. They were wrong, and that's the historian in me went through the OP, and I discovered like one of the greatest knights in my kingdom was like won his crown unbelted, and nobody had known, and I like called him up one night before, like after I won, and I go, I was looking at the OP, and I have a really important question to ask you, and this was Count Dennis of the Titans. Or not Count Dennis of the Titans. I asked him, I said, did you win your crown unbelted? And he said, yeah, I got knighted before I stepped up. And I was like, wow, like nobody knew, like they never talked about it. And I had always been told, well, if you win crown unbelted, you're always going to be the guy that wins crown unbelted. And they're right, you are. You can't take that away, but you can make them forget. Or you can make it be that maybe they should have, right? You could choose to be the greatest king or knight or whatever you could possibly be. And that was certainly what my attempt has been since that day. Right?
Did you do that first reign unbelted, or did they knight you before?
I did not. I did. So there's a circle that people still talk about because of it, right? So they all thought it had never happened. It had been 30 plus years. And in Atenveldt still never happened again. So it was a one-time thing in terms of the modern era of SCA, right? And there was a circle, and everybody knew who they were talking about. Like, it was big, and it was loud, and there was lots of yelling, and the guards kept having to get farther and farther away to keep the crowd away, and it's just the thing people talk about. Like, there's not enough screen for my hands to depict how big the crowd had got, and they finally offered, and I had always the notion that I would never take it if I won unbelted. I was going to be that unbelted king, and my wife was like, "Oh, no." And she got her, and Uther talked some good sense into me, because his first reign is unbelted, his second reign wasn't. And I think I'm right. I know this, but he at least has one. And he said, if they offer, you take it. And I said, all right, how do I make this as cool a thing as possible? And I said, okay, I accept, but I have a condition, is you have to do it as part of my coronation.
Oh, cool.
That is different.
Cool. So my coronation involved my knighting and the oath of swords around my neck. So I had all the blades around my throat, and I was punched in the face for real by Phelan or Arius to Sparta, and then I became king.
Wow.
So I did not, but yeah, it was a thing. And it was a huge coronation, probably because of it, right? Because I was like the kid that took the sword from the stone.
That's cool.
Right.
That's really
And
cool.
I still think it's possible to be done, right? I'm not a fluke. I just think we had such a log jam in my kingdom, and I wasn't like a surprise. It wasn't like I come out of nowhere. I've been fighting guys in Ontario, and I think you and I met before then. But I was fighting like Skepti and Sven and all these guys from Ontario, and I was winning fights.
Yeah.
I was winning the fights. It wasn't the other way around. And they were literally, people from other kingdoms were literally coming to my crown and going, what is the deal here? Like, this guy is smoking everybody else. He's been Queen's Champion in your kingdom 4 times. He won a Queen's Champion tournament and won 72 fights in 90 minutes. Like how does a guy do that? It's just like in Flagstaff. And it was just because I was just a freak, and I trained hard. I out train everybody, and they shouldn't have been a surprise. But
so coming from like being a successful knight and king in the ECS, and wrestling and MMA, how did you stay interested in the SCA when it felt like like maybe there were personality issues and you weren't going to succeed in the way that you wanted?
Honestly, spite.
Stubbornness, yeah.
The worst thing you can do, my best friend Ivan will tell you, is to tell me I can't accomplish something. And I was told by a knight in my kingdom that I would never be king, and I would certainly never be a knight, because my disability certainly wouldn't let me, and I certainly wouldn't. He was like, you can't speak well, you can't. He was just listed all. He'll never do it, and so for me it was like, cool, you're 3 times wrong, right? So part of it was that, but part of it was I wanted to prove that all those guys that have always been held back, that somebody could come out, like somebody could come up from them and be that guy. It was tough though. I mean, there was plenty of times I almost walked away, and then I'd have somebody like Koska pull me aside and be like, no, man, no, you got to stay around. And I made so many amazing friends outside of my kingdom. And that was what really started to ignite my love. Like, I think when you're so insular inside your own kingdom and you forget that there's so many amazing people out there, right? And when I coming up through the SCA, there was hardly any internet, right? So you would meet somebody, maybe you had heard about them via word, but you never got to see them in person. And like, you finally fight them and you're like, it's a thing. And I mean, I had been given like the king's favor of Ontario, right? And that was a big thing for me. Or a king Dougal out of Calontir gave me the Valor Award for Calontir, right? And it was just like these little things, all this stuff was happening to me outside of my own kingdom. So it was really tough to be like, well, why not in mine? Like, what am I doing wrong? And it would just be like, you're ahead of the curve, maybe. That was like what my wife would tell me a lot. She was amazing at it because she went through it all with Uther. She had seen this all before.
Great.
This was like a rerun for her. This was like a whole second chapter. And this time it was the guy she loved and was married to. It was just like a nightmare all over. And I think she couldn't believe it, that it was kind of happening all over again. But in the other way, she was maybe not surprised, considering she was like, well, I guess I have, those are the men of my life, Uther and Ed, a couple jackasses, so. And so, yeah, I think a lot of it was spite, because but it was just, don't tell me I can't do something, because I certainly will. I will do everything I can. I don't believe, I grew up believing a little green dude that said there's no such thing as try, there's only do or do not. And I really have always believed that. And that was me, man. That's like been my life. It's just like playing high school football. And I was a geek orchestra guy, had hair to my ass, right? And I was a metalhead, and I played in the orchestra, and all I did was play in bands. And I had this high school football coach who kept bugging me every year, like, hey, would you come play football? We come play football. We come play football. I was like, man, I don't want to get rid of my hair. I play bass, I don't want to break my hands, yada, yada, yada. And he was like, you don't have to cut your hair. He just kept bugging me. And I sort of, finally agreed. Like, okay, I'll come out and play football. And I showed up the first day and I was like, well, I have this orchestra camp. Like, I'm going to have to miss 2 days. So I show up on like the third day of camp. He was like, he didn't care. But then, one of the coaches screaming at me at the top of his lungs, like, you're going to have to cut that hair, blah, blah, blah. And he stops practice. This is in 1991. And he says, he doesn't ever have to cut his hair. You shut up about that. He can keep his hair as long as he wants. Let's just play football. He didn't care. I ran a 4.6 40. I was just going to kill people. That was like the way he looked at it. He watched me in the gym squatting, 450 pounds as a freshman and sophomore, junior in school, right? So, but here was this kid. All I wanted to do was just play music and headbang. Right?
So how did you get into wrestling and the MMA and that kind of stuff?
That's a lot. So I was in the Army, and I got in the Army and I got hurt, right? And so when I got blinded in the Army, my whole career in the Army was just killed.
Okay, let's talk about that first, and then how you found it.
So when I went out of high school. In high school, again, I was told I couldn't. I joked about running for senior class president, and I got told I could never win. So I ran, and guess what happened?
You won.
I won. Yeah. So I had long hair, and I was senior class president, and so I finally remember cutting my hair, and they announced it on the PA system at my high school. Because it was such a big deal, Ed cut his hair. I was the only kid with long hair in school. And I'm just different. And when I remember getting out of high school and not really, I was 17 and I didn't really think, the first Gulf War was kind of getting ready to start. And I didn't really think I wanted to play football. I had scholarship offers and I just turned them all down. And I went in the Army instead. That was, I guess, the Captain America in me, right? And I went in the Army and I wanted to fly helicopters, and that was my whole dream. And then I got blinded. So I was on a pass at an ECS event, luckily here in Tucson, Arizona, up on Mount Lemmon, and it was on the finals of the tournament. And a sword. It's actually the same problem I have with our current rebated steel rules. I think by reading the rules, I can take a legal sword and then take it diagonally through the helmet. And that's exactly what happened to me. And it crushed the sinus cavity toward the tear duct. I have a scar from here all the way down, cracked the skull all the way down, and I should be dead. But my reflexes saved me. In Fight Club, when they talk about you can drink a liter of blood before you puke, it's true. Okay.
Yeah.
I laughed a lot at that line because I had experienced it, but I was blinded. And so my whole career was over in what I wanted to be. Warrant Officer Candidate School was out. It wasn't going to happen. I didn't want to just be a mechanic for the rest of my life in the Army. My whole goal was to fly Apaches or something. And at that time, they had no interest in keeping a half-blind guy in the Army anyway, so I was out. Right. Came home and went to school, and I'd been doing martial arts all my life. My dad, who passed away a year ago yesterday, he taught me how to box and all that stuff really young. He taught me really to appreciate combat sports. And I met a guy here in town who was just like, hey man, you ever think about wrestling? You got a great look. And I was like, yeah, that sounds fun. Let's do it. And he taught me how to wrestle like a little league, showed me some locks and some holds and stuff. And I just took it up really quick. And I had my first match, like, I don't know, maybe a month or two after starting training, which is kind of unheard of, right? I mean, they just threw me in and I was like a greenhorn and I wrestled and I sucked. I know I did. And it went along, but I get better and I get matches and I started getting booked all over. And then I met a guy who won the UFC. He won UFC 8. His name was Don Fry. And Don Fry became my total mentor. He was like, one day he was like, hey, you want to come train with me? Come on. And I was like, yeah. He was like, you can come be part of my fight team and train with MMA fights and all this stuff. And I'll teach you how to do that. And we'll wrestle, blah, blah, blah. And he had been trained by Curt Hennig. Curt Hennig is famously known as Mr. Perfect in pro wrestling. So if you grew up watching wrestling, you've seen Curt Hennig, Mr. Perfect wrestling. He's one of the best wrestlers of all time. There's a reason he's called Mr. Perfect. And that was what got me into wrestling. And I was blowing up. I worked with the WWF at the time and worked all over. And then I tore my labrum. And coming back from that was tough. And by that period of time, though, it was interesting. I was really starting to pick up steam in the SCA. So and I had seen I'd worked at so many shows with great wrestlers that I grew up watching, like Honky Tonk Man and Jim Stepani and Neidhart and Yokozuna, and was just working show after show with like huge stars. And I was thinking, this guy's like 40, 50, 60 years old, and he was at WrestleMania, and we're working a high school gym in front of 5,000 people. This is a big show for me. Right. It's not a big show for this guy. And I was like, where's the retirement fund of this? And if you're not, and I worked a guy named Paul Roma, we worked a match, and he really gave me some great advice. And Mick Foley was the same way. And he was just like, man, you have to think about your career outside of here, or money, you're really good at this. And so when I had seen so many guys just having trouble with their families, there's always a rarity. And I could have been that rare guy, but I just made a choice at one point just to walk away. And that's how I got involved. And I did that for a long time, and I made a lot of money doing it. And it was really, really fun. But looking back, I wouldn't take it away, but I wouldn't want to be raising my two kids that way.
Right.
And what's weird is I don't know if I would have, I would have met, I still would have met Osa, because I was married. I mean, I won her in a wrestling match. That's the joke. Right. So.
Did you wrestle Uther for her?
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, I did. So we're at Penzic. I was just a squire. This is the Knight's Pride thing, and I rib them about this all the time. Okay, so we were really drunk. And in Ontario, they like to wrestle up there.
We do.
Ontarians and me and Uther at Penzic on a really hot night with a lot of tequila or kamikazes is a bad mix. So we started having like shoot wrestling matches, and I was the ref. And by the end of the night, everybody kept convincing Uther, like, Uther, you and I gotta wrestle, you and I gotta wrestle. I was like, fine. So I take off my stuff, and you don't understand, I'm like 280 at this time, probably 8% body fat, right? So it was good. This is a good time to take off a shirt. And especially when Osa's in the crowd.
Right, that's
right. And so Uther likes to tell it, like he said, well, I'll tell you the story first. So we take everything off, and I take off my belt, everything. I'm just pants. But Uther's been wrestling in a belt all night. Now I'm a judoka, and the first lesson of wrestling is you don't wear something I can grab, right? So we literally locked up in like a collar and elbow, and I just kind of went for a single leg, and he felt his belt like tug underneath his nuts, and he knew right then he was in trouble, because it just was up all the way under his back. He was in like fireman carry. Like he felt that me go for his one, but my hand grabbed the belt and just rode it up. And he just says, he hears me go, ready for a ride, big boy? And it was up on my shoulders. And he's like, not only did Ed pick me up and throw me for the first time at a wrestling match, Ed picked me up and showed me to the crowd. And then he threw me. So nice. Yeah, so that's my joke I always tell. That's how I won my wife in a wrestling match. It's the most Viking story I could tell, I think.
So how did you retrain yourself to sword fight after you lost vision in your eye?
That's a really awesome question. I talked about this recently. It was really hard mentally. It wasn't physically hard. It was hard mentally. And I'd say it probably took a year to even start to be able to do it. I had to not be afraid. One of the things I did was I started fighting a lot of light weapon stuff. And the ECS rapier is a lot like SCA cut and thrust, except it's with a Schlager. So it's really fun. You don't have to wear a lot of armor. And it's just a great time. And I did that. I spent a lot of time really kind of looking at that. But I still didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And luckily my dad was like, you can do this, right? You can, if you really want to do it, you can do this. And I just spent a lot of time, and I remember I picked up the Dao Jiku Do at this time to really try to explore it. And I still was in doubt, and I saw an interview with Michael Jordan, and the interviewer was asking him, like, why are you so great? Which is like the weirdest question, right? And he just starts listing off all these, I've had 600 and something game winning shots and missed, just list off every time he's failed. And he's like, I've failed more than everybody else. And I was like, oh, I just can't be afraid to fail. And that was like, I think really mentally what I had to get over. It was so hard. I have an amazing sister, Elsbieta, here in my kingdom is amazing. And she was really, she really supported me on it as well. Like my whole family kind of came together, and I had really good friends, and they encouraged me to keep going if it was something I really wanted to do. But I had to wait a while just because I was worried about, I couldn't even take a shot to the head, right? I had to wait for everything to fuse, and because they replaced so much of it with like plastic and stuff. So, but I think the mental part, like I tell everybody, that's the hardest part about coming back from really traumatic injuries. It's not the physical part, it's the mental. Like, are you willing to suffer? Are you willing to suck? Like, are you willing to fail? Because it's such an ego destroyer, right? And, when you're 18, 19-year-old kid, it's a blessing maybe that it happened then. Because I can't imagine if I had been way more successful than that had happened. Like, it had been so traumatic. I'm glad it happened to me and no one else. Because I was able to come back from it. And I don't know that everybody could. I've seen lots of people have really traumatic injuries and they just couldn't come back from it. But I spent the year really working on learning how to read depth, like retrain depth perception, retrain just trusting, learning how to, like, that my technique had to be good and that I couldn't rely on what I really saw. I had to know based on where we were. And so like blind wrestlers, if I learned that once I found my range, I wouldn't forget it and I wouldn't let it go. So it's probably why like the Ed walk, where I'll keep walking you down, is so famous, right? But that's why it became me. Is like, once I know my range, you're not gonna go away. Like, I'm gonna latch on to you, and the worst thing you can do is come jump on me, because then it's really, you definitely tell me where the range is, right? So that was the hardest part, honestly. It's just a mental thing. I think anybody coming back from any injury, that's what they're going to have to deal with, is like, I think everybody coming back to fighting after this, that's going to be a hard thing, because some of us are going to put on COVID-19. We're going to put on COVID-19 times 2. Yeah. Like,
God, I hope not.
Yeah. Well, probably me. Right. Imagine, I put on 12 pounds of muscle the year previous, and I'm still just trying to slap on more muscle as I get older, because, I want to be big and strong. And all of a sudden I can't go to the gym and I'm still eating like I'm gaining muscle.
You can't fight much, or if you can fight at all.
Oh no. Like, we literally lost our beautiful period. Like, so here, February, March, April is awesome. And May starts to get sucky. And then we can fight at night, but like, you're still looking at 90s at night for fighting. Though tonight it's pretty beautiful out. We have a storm rolling in, but that means, like, when we have monsoon, we have lightning, and lightning means no fighting. Right. So unless you're an idiot like me, but we'll be able to fight again in October, like temperature wise, but there will be no SCA events. So yeah, it'll be really tough. It'll be like coming back from an injury, except we'll all suck together. So that'll be the best.
Suck together. So Mari asks, how does your professional training influence your SCA training? Because some people would think that you would just sort of rely on your athleticism, but I know that's not you. Like, you train super hard when you decide you want something, even in the SCA, right?
Yeah. So pro wrestling has hard, like, literally nothing doesn't translate, but my MMA stuff does. MMA and boxing translates. So I was able to take, and I'm hoping I'm going to answer this correctly. Sorry, Mari, but I was able to take what I learned from MMA training camps with Don Fry and stuff. And it's why I started telling everybody, listen, stop fighting to train to fight. Right. And so that's the one difference. It's like, it doesn't matter what style you're training, but if you train to fight, so resistance training is a consistent thing, right? The stronger you are, the better you can be, right? So if two people who are equally skilled, the guy who is a bit stronger is going to be able to do things longer, quicker, right? In the overall scheme of things. So that's one of the things I do no matter what, right? Irrelevant, so there's a lot of things I learned from that stuff, but they all have different techniques. But I will say the MMA and the boxing and the SCA fighting are so similar. It's really easy to intertwine them. The only difference is if I'm holding a shield or not, right? Does that answer the question right, or did I lose it?
Oh, I think it does.
Okay.
I'm not sure that's the right or wrong answer.
Yeah, I do out train. I mean, I think that's one thing about me historically is my training acumen. And what's weird is like people won't actually see it because they have this knowledge. They think that only way to train is through fighting. But I'm like, there's so much other stuff I can do, right? I can make every part of my synapses be ready to fire for fighting by doing these other things. There's all this stuff I can do to make parts of me stronger for fighting, be it resistance training with bands or weights, or just putting a bunch of like numbers up on the wall and have like randomly hitting them or whatever. Like that was something I did years ago just to try to get this, because that's the other kicker I didn't even talk about. I was right-eye dominant.
Oh.
I don't see out of my right eye.
Great.
So I had a steel helmet for the longest time that was like solid on the whole side of my face because I couldn't see anything. And what happened is I actually started training my brain and everything to where now I can see all the way over here with my left eye, right? So I don't need a faceplate anymore, right? So yeah, I think that's the one thing I learned from my professional stuff, that consistent. I don't think it ever goes away from me. Like I don't know if I could be like, I do believe that if you're going to prepare for something, prepare. Right. And I've seen more and more guys doing it now. Right. It's beautiful to watch. There's a lot of, some people, they want to watch a video. They want to do this. Me, I just want to go punch a heavy bag or lift a bunch of weights, or, those are the things, jump rope. Right.
Do you have like favorite websites that you go to find like training workouts or regimens? Like if somebody was new to it and they wanted to learn and they didn't have the money to pay a personal trainer.
God, it's crazy. Cause like now the problem with the internet is it's both beautiful and insane.
And full of shit, right?
It's so full of shit. It's so full of shit. Yo, hold on, I'm gonna do my bro thing. Yo, bro, this workout is the greatest workout you ever do. Bro science all the way. And it's just like, you gotta do this thing, like, and it's like, no, man. Like that's it. Like fasted cardio. You're like, nah, no, do HIIT, right? Or they're like, guys are like, I'm on keto. I'm like, that's awesome, but that doesn't work for me, right? And like me, I'm the anti-bullshit guy. Like, I don't care what you want to do. You want to do these fad diets, fine, but just understand they're a fad diet or it's a fad workout. There are some really great websites out. There's some really great guys out there. A friend of mine, Dr. Jim Stepani out of LA. He was, for the longest, I learned a ton of stuff from him, and everything about him is just generally, science-based. There's no bro. Like if you looked at him and you listen to him talk, you'd be like, it's pretty bro, but he's a PhD. There's Scott Stevenson he's in Tampa now, but he was here in Tucson for a long time. He's jacked up. He has Fortitude Training. His stuff is pretty amazing. But these guys, that's more like bodybuilder stuff. Jim Stepani, you can get really good like cardio and all those kind of things. I'm blessed. I have Keith Scott and Impact right here in Tucson, and I've always had Keith and Impact. I mean, Keith was on the East Coast for a long time, and I remote trained with him for years before he moved back to Tucson, and I could train with him. He creates first round drafts in the Major League Baseball, and he's right here in Tucson. So if you live here in Tucson, you train with Keith. That's it. Like you go train with Keith, you learn, and you spend, it's believe it or not, it's a lot of people can afford it. The problem is a lot of people like, oh, but I got to get my Frappuccino on, right. Or whatever, So, am I being, or they'll say they don't have time, but they really can tell you what happened on every episode of Walking Dead or it's that video game.
Yeah. It's about, priorities, right? Like you have time for what you make a priority. If you want something bad enough, you'll make time for it. Right? Yeah. You were talking about Michael Jordan. Duke Sven from up here recommended that I watch The Last Dance or whatever.
I haven't watched it yet, but
you should watch it.
I've heard it's amazing.
The first couple seasons are really, really good. As it gets a little bit more into it, not so good. But are there other athletes, like professional athletes, that you admire, like Jordan?
I know some people don't like him, but I was a huge fan of Lance Armstrong. I still am. The reason is everybody in cycling is doping. I don't care. They all are. If they tell you they're not, they're lying. And that field's level. He still had to out pedal. He still had to out train. He came
back from cancer. Right?
Yeah. God, if you've seen the pictures of him, you're just like, you came back from that. It's pretty incredible. I'm still a huge fan of like Dan Severn and Dom Fry, both because they were mentors. Dan Severn to this day probably could still kick my ass, and he could probably kick everybody's ass. Like he's in his 50s and he's amazing. And he's a legend. I was a huge fan of the Russian Beast. He was a wrestler. His name's all of a sudden, but I'm thinking of a current boxer I really watch a lot is Lomachenko. I'm a big fan of his, and because he fights a lot like I do. Same methodology, right leg forward for the same reasons, all this stuff. He's a lot of the same kind of attacking. It's all about fighting at angles 20%. I've learned a lot from a lot of different martial artists over the years. So, and then it's funny is everybody compares me to a guy that plays for the Texans. Name's skipping, but everybody's like, oh, it's Ed, and like everything about him, I guess, is him. So I don't know. But there's not a lot, I guess. I can't say there's a tremendous amount. I get a lot from comic books, I guess, maybe,
Captain America.
Yeah, well, and that's an interesting story. So the Captain America thing was something that was actually put on me more than I took it, right? So I grew up, I'm a big comic book geek. Like I could talk about comics for 2 hours straight, right? And I know my comic history, and I know a lot about comics, especially 80s, 90s, right? So, but I grew up, I in my long box collection is probably mostly Batman. It's so much Batman. And Bruce is like, one of the things I love about Bruce is he's like, he doesn't have any superpowers. He just makes it like he refuses to like give up. The whole Venom thing is just because he couldn't save a kid, and he literally then went and tried to lift this piece of weight over and over again he couldn't lift to save that kid that day, so that he ended up getting on Venom just to lift that stuff, and becomes a drug addict and all that. But it's a big thing, right? And Captain America actually happened when I was wrestling. So I was wrestling for a promoter, and I didn't really have a gimmick at the time, and he pulled me aside. He's like, man, you're so good. He's like, but man, if you made your hair just a little blonder and you just get a really good tan and you came out with a flag to Born in the USA, you'd be so over. And I was like, and he was an old vet. He'd been around for a long time. And I was like, I don't know. And I came home and I talked to my sister about it. And she's like, when we dye your hair? Like, I mean, she thought it was the best idea ever. And I already had blonde hair, but we just went even more blonde, like Ric Flair blonde. And he wasn't wrong. Like, I came out I went and got a flag. I changed a friend of mine, Marjorie Koski, she made me some trunks, red, white, blue trunks. And I went out and wrestled for the first time like that. And oh man, it was over. Like, just, it was night and day. And that was when my career just took off. Like, and people just started thinking of me as Captain America just in general, from my idealism about things, right? And I've always been pro LGBT, you know, I've been super equal rights on gay marriage. I've been, you know, I had Black friends as kids, and I grew up in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and I had, you know, those friends had crosses burned in their lawns. And so I grew up real young and I don't want to talk about politics, but I mean, it was just like, those were the things that they kind of like pinned on me because of just my attitude about that stuff. And it was just so like, this is America and you're going to do this thing. And this is why, you know, here's your First Amendment right, your Second Amendment right, you know, and I was just like, this stuff. And I love the Constitution, and I loved everything about that stuff. And it was just weird. You know, everybody just started equating me with Captain America. The shield I have was given to me. The costume that's my avatar that everybody kind of knows. That's me in my costume as Captain America, because it was like, everybody was like, you have to do this. So I was like, all right, well, I'm going to do a bodybuilding competition, and then I'll put on the costume and go to San Diego Comic-Con. So it's a thing, and it's the most honor I can ever imagine. Like, I never thought anybody would ever equate me with Steve Rogers. But I did the beard first. I'm just saying, like, you know, so that's.
Oh, did we lose him?
That looks like he's.
Now, if Chris Evans shaves his head, you know, so. Yeah, so. I'm back. I'm here.
Did the Action Awesome thing come out of the wrestling?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, so it didn't. Yeah, it's actually SCA 100%. Yeah, so my second. Huh? You want the story?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually okay. So it's my sister and I talk about it all the time. So she helped me come up with it, but on pure accident. So there was a movie coming out with Jet Li and Jason Statham, and it was called War. And we were driving to a Crown. I think it was Crown. I want to say we were driving to a Crown tourney that I won. And we're like talking about it. Oh man, I can't wait for that movie. It's gonna be this. It's gonna be so much action. It's gonna be awesome. And also, man, action awesome. And I was just like, and then I won Crown like that day, and I'm like in court, and all of a sudden I was just like, I just dropped the action awesome thing, like, and it was a call or return. I'd say action, they say awesome, and that's pro wrestling, or church, one of the way, whichever way we went. So.
It's good theater either way.
That's right.
Yeah.
It gets the crowd involved too.
Yeah, and that was the thing. One of the things about my reigns, I've always tried to be, it's like, I hated boring courts. There's pro wrestling influence all over it. So when I gave my first day away, it was me giving it. The Herald didn't give it. I laid on hands and declared that person a Lord of Atenveldt. And that had never been done. Right? And the other thing that people kept trying to figure out was like, how does Ed know everything? Like, I was like, I wanted to know everything about why I was given this award. And I had this little book that was always on the side. And I would write down everything about why I was given an award. Everybody, and Osa and I both, we had split up who we were going to give awards. And each of us wrote down this stuff. So we knew whose turn it was. So this was all like theater stuff, right? It was like, you're on, mom on. You know, so everything was about set blocking with my heralds. And we had all that stuff. And it was super easy. We just improv theater. Ari, Mr. Sorry here in Atenveldt, she calls it a Captain Dinner Theater or something like that. Like, and it's totally true, right? But my whole thing was just if you're there with me, I want you to be there. I want you to be there. I want you to want to be there, because then and I want it to be fun, right? So if it's boring, that's my fault. So just because I won Crown doesn't mean you have to be there, right? So I wanted it to be, oh my God, I got to go to this guy's courts, because everything he does is like, he's going to do something at this court that I'm going to remember. And so the first reign was a lot of that. And then, you know, that was like, well, and that whole first reign really was just me trying to like, I may never get to do this again. Right. Because there's still that doubt you have. You win your first one, you're like, there's that doubt. That I showed up for my second crown, really ready to win. Right? Sorry, I lost the second time I got to the finals, and that taught me that you really have to train. Like you can't. So I lost to Arias. We fought for something like, I don't know, I've heard different stories, but it's 40 minutes or something up at 9,000 feet.
Yeah, I think he told that story.
And it was 2 counts fighting for the strawberry leaves. And he's fighting for my sister. So I'm not really going to lose, but I was going to lose. And I didn't want to lose. And both of us he was way more trained, and he had practiced literally. He says he had trained to just be able to counter me, like what I could do in that big wrap. Right. And so I learned a lot from that. And I went and trained really hard for the next 6 months. And then my grandmother died. And my sister actually had to miss her coronation because of that. And so then I had another 6 months to train because I couldn't go to that crown tournament. And I showed up to that crown with like an 8-pack and anger, like I was ready. And so when I got up there, it was Pro Wrestling Ed. And I just was like, I taught everybody the Action Awesome thing. And that was the reign we did. That if you said my wife's name, you said Osa, like it was like we said Atenveldt Osa. So and her name was like a battle cry because that was Australia reign. And but yeah, the Action Awesome thing actually ended up, every time I talked about it, it was always a thing. It was like a philosophy, right? So it really became something bigger than just a call return. And I did use it in pro wrestling, don't get me wrong, because when you have something golden, you go with it. But the Action Awesome thing also just meant to rise above and just realize the greatness in who you are. And so that whole second reign really was about trying to get everybody to understand the beautiful thing that the SCA is. There's really nothing like it in the world. We're this last bastion of generosity and chivalry and just noblesse oblige and the giving. There's so many I mean, it's ridiculous how many people I've met for the first time and instantly connected with them and knew for the rest of my life that we were going to be friends. Right? Matt up in Ontario.
Garten.
Yeah, Garten, thank you. Man, my brain is fried.
I knew what you meant.
Yeah. So we met for the first time at a West Crown, and we got thrown in a tent together, and it was like both had to share the same bed, like literally 2 dudes on an air mattress, right? And I was like, bro, I didn't snuggle you too much last night, did I? It's like, you don't even move, But like we became amazing friends from that. Like, and he even put it back. He's like, you meet somebody, and it's like instantly when you meet, that person was either somebody you knew in a past life, or they're just instantly made to be part of your life. And I've never had that outside of the SCA. Nowhere else have I ever had that. And if the SCA ended tomorrow, I have relationships that I have made in the SCA that are completely would still last. They're not dependent on the SCA for existence. And that's if anything, that's what the SCA gives us, is those relationships. And that's why I say we don't play. We participate. And that's what Action Awesome is. It's what can you do to make your life greater, somebody else's life greater? Are you doing something to be bigger? Are you just complaining, or are you doing? And that was really what it was all about. It's like everything about this thing is Action Awesome. You are putting awesome in action. And so it just became this kind of smash thing. And the Action Awesome Army became a thing, and the Action Awesome Strike Force was a thing. And everybody just kind of started to understand what it meant. And I would say Action Awesome approved on something. And they knew what it meant because it was always a consistent thing of what I'd say Action Awesome approved for, right? And it would be like some amazing thing somebody did for something else, right? And so that's just become really who Action Awesome is. That was like the whole thing. And I love it to this day. I'll see a random thing and somebody will post about, be Action Awesome. And I used to say, stay true, stay believing, stay Action Awesome. And that would be like how I'd end a lot of courts if I didn't like drop a peerage or a big award, So And yeah, that's what that means. That's the whole, it's a philosophy. And it's kind of the embodiment. I try to make it the embodiment of who I am. You know, I'm not perfect. I'm certainly not the most in shape guy. Yeah, I'm not I may look like a god of war, but you know, but I'm not, right? And you know, it's just I just really want people to realize the greatness in who they are, and everybody has it. It's just a matter of finding out what you're great at. And some people just have never been given the nudge or the confidence by somebody else. I'll say to somebody, and I stole this from an anime, believe it or not, but I'd say, if you can't believe in you, believe in the me that believes in you.
Right.
And that's just kind of like what it is. I mean, it's all that kind of stuff. It's just a general, everything freaking positive that you can say. Action awesome. It's like Smurf, but action awesome, you know.
That sort of segues into a good question that Merrick asked, and he says, how do you prepare mentally for a big tournament?
So I don't watch video. I tell you that. I don't watch any video, because I won't fight that guy on the day of the tournament. Right. So two people I watch fighting, that even if it's me, I won't fight that person. Right. If I fight Uther in a big tournament, it's not going to be the Uther I fought the previous time.
Right.
I have to fight the person that's in front of me at the time. So everything about how I train is to be the best I can be that day. Not against a specific opponent. It's all about me, and I will have to adapt to it. Right. I don't train combos. I learn to string together shots. So my opportunities, the shot opportunities I'm given, are based on what's just presented. So all my training is based on string theory, right? That's kind of what I call it. Fighting is all about measure, angles, changes of levels, and timing. So if you can control those four things, that's it. Fighting is not hard, it's just hard. And you can make it as easy as you want here. So train your brain, train your reactions, learn to throw your flat snaps and target those stuff and create problems for yourself. Train your body to adapt to problems that are presented, because that's all fighting is. Very quick problems trying to do damage to you. And how do you counter that problem really quickly? So, but you can't do that if you're out of shape, both physically and mentally, right? And you have to make sure you prepared that day by eating correct. Like, eating is a big thing. Don't show up and fight in a tournament empty. I eat really big carbohydrate breakfasts. I eat like that, and I fuel myself all throughout the day. I don't bonk, right? And I really try to just peak. I would say I won't go gangbusters for the first few weeks or whatever, but by the time we're getting to Crown, I can punch a heavy bag nonstop, as violent as possible. So just like straight up for 3 minutes. No fight in the SCA goes that long.
Right.
The average fight is 30
with
seconds.
Arius.
I was just going to say the 40-minute one.
But how much of that fight?
Right. Most of that was mental.
Standing and watching.
How much of it is us not throwing shots? How much of it is us kneeling? Like, right. The average fight though is 16, 17 seconds. Take out, like, if you film a fight in a Crown, if you were to film and I did this, I filmed all the fights in a Crown tournament, cut out the intros, and waited time from the first strike, right? And then you average them all out. And if you really want to go Six Sigma, or you throw away the top and the bottom, and you got 16 seconds or so, right? And okay, I can bang for 16 seconds. Skepti, when I was like first coming up, he's like, "Can you win a Crown?" Or he's like, "You can win Crown." I go, "You think?" He's like, "Can you win 11 fights?" We're like, "Yeah, okay, you can win Crown. That easy." So I just train to not be tired. And it gets but on the other hand, it helps. I like to train, and I get some guys together that, like, when we're fighting, we're going to go, right? Like Ivan or something, we're going to go, but I get more out of rep on the Pel. And I don't hit the pel hard. I don't hit it fast. It's all slow. Actually, the only time I go hard is if I'm actually sparring with somebody or I'm punching a heavy bag. That's it. Rest of the time.
You said when you went into the second crown that you won, you had all your anger, I think. So do you fight from?
Yeah,
from
I mean,
it's a passion or emotion? No. Okay.
No, emotionless. If anything, I'm just like smiling at you the time. Yeah, like that's probably something I learned from Don Fry. Was like, it's like you're here with me. You're stuck in this room with me. Like it's Rorschach from Watchmen. You're in here with me. Or the scene in Civil War where it's like, was it Winter Soldier? Who wants to get off before we get started, right? Yeah, and I know a lot of people laugh when they see some of those things because that's kind of always my thing is, you're in the Eric with me. I'm ready. So, are you more prepared? And I'm not gonna I don't have some pre-planned game plan. I'm gonna just react to what you do. I have things that I like to do. Every martial art I've ever watched, everybody has their specialties. In judo, maybe a guy has 1 or 2 moves he likes to fit it, but he has like 18 ways he's gonna get you there, maybe 40. I have my rap I'm known for, and I have a bunch of different ways I'll get it on you. But it helps to be in shape. And I think if you're not in shape here, you're not going to be in shape here, because this is what actually fails first before your body will. Right? You'll start to get tired, and then your brain goes, "Oh my God, I'm tired." But if you're really in shape here, you'll be able to keep pushing here. I tell people you can't teach heart. I can't teach heart. I can teach everything else, but I can't teach heart. So, and that's when, like the Dukes, the guys that win a lot, those guys, that's like Uther said once, maybe it was Uther, maybe it was Jade, Dukes are closers. Dukes are closers, and it's they have the heart, they know how to finish, right? And that's a difference.
When you were talking about, are you more reactive when you're fighting because you were saying you don't have a plan, so you like to react?
Yeah, so
try to set people up to put them in that position. You just react to what they're doing.
Well, yes. So the answer is two-sided. It depends, right? So you can use shots to make things, right? Nobody dies on the first shot. Right?
Well, I've died on the first shot, but
But it's a rarity, and you certainly, you don't see it in the finals of Crown usually.
No.
Right. So I teach everybody, it happens, but it shouldn't be the expectation. There's no silver bullet. All right. Nobody has some magic silver special move, and then they're like Hadouken, right? Nobody's actually doing that. You have to do the second, the third, the fourth shot, right? And that's the thing is, some people would train to throw that first, the second, the third, the fourth shot, and that's it. They throw those as a combo sequence. Well, I played this game called Robo Rally once upon a time, and if things happen in that game and you're programming the robots, and all of a sudden they do all this stuff. Well, we've all watched a guy train. You're fighting somebody, and I use guy in the generic term, okay? And we're fighting them, and you end up intercepting their first shot or their second shot, but they have a 4-move combo programmed in their head, and they're still trying to do that 4-move combo, right? We've all seen it. But it's they're robots. So I don't do that. That's the difference. Is this is a string. You have opened up. You've given me this target of an opportunity based on how you hold your body, how you're holding your shield, your helmet, how you moved to throw that shot, maybe expose to something, and because of everything, so I'm in measure. You do something, I can change my angle. I'm at a 20% change. I can use timing to intercept that. Maybe I can change the levels. I can dip down and go for a leg shot, then come back up for a head shot, right? And so that's the difference. And I'm just literally reacting based on what you're presenting, right? And you can train that without without fighting. You can learn a lot of that doing slow work. You can do that with just like hand stuff with somebody, right? You and one of your buddies can get together, try to slap each other in the side of the head lightly or whatever.
A mirror drill.
Like doing that same thing. Yeah, or a mirror drill or any of those kind of things. Learning to stand in front of a mirror and just see how you stand is probably one of the best things that I've ever learned to do. Like I have, luckily, I have a huge mirror, and I'll stand, even to this day, I'll look at the mirror and I'll check my stance and hold a shield. Every stance, no stance is perfect. Every stance is beatable, right? So, and once everybody starts, and all stances are great until they start moving, right? So, but yeah, I wouldn't say I'm a tremendously offensive fighter, but I'm also not a defensive fighter. I believe that you can use your body as offense. You can use movement as offense. A lot of people get into timing, so their shots are 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, there's a space in between those shots, and you can intercept that. You can staccato that, right? So you can steal a move, right? You can use their moves to deceive and to hide what you're doing, right? They're too busy throwing their combo while you shifted your feet and they couldn't see it. And now all of a sudden you're 20 degrees off on the other side. So it's not your 20, it's just a 20-degree move for you, but it was a 60, 80-degree move for them, right? And they're just dead, right? So, that's my philosophy. That's what I teach. But I think a lot of it comes from the lack of this, maybe. But I've learned over the years that that's just like allows me, even when I was just boxing and stuff as a kid, attacking from angles and all that. I was never wanting to be the first puncher. I don't start fights, I finish fights. Even in a bar fight. So yeah. It's a all reaction, not, so I call it reactive offense, active defense. That's what I've told all my squires. And that's a term.
When you get everything working together, it's everything's offense and everything's defense, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how to explain that, but.
Well, that's what I call the Zen Viking thing. And I'll be teaching guys and I go, oh, this is going to sound so freaking corny. But when you throw a shot right, you'll know you threw that shot right. And it's funny, it's like every high-end Duke, I know, I'll say that even in a seminar and they all go, uh-huh. Yeah, it's just like, right. So yeah, I mean, the problem is gonna be where I'm like too far on one. Even my stance itself is not too far forward or too far back. It's all up and down. Like I always say, your belt should point straight to the earth. And I think that's the best way for me. That's always how I've liked to fight. I've matured in my fighting, I think, over the years. A lot of it's come from teaching people who weren't as physically gifted. I've never really thought of myself as physically gifted. I'm just more physically driven. I got a really good talent of driving my ass to practice or driving myself to the gym. I'm really good at it, so, I mean, I had plenty of girlfriends when I was okay. Rule number 1, Tuesday nights, we don't go out, right? Cause that was fighter practice night. And I knew guys that wouldn't do that. I'm like, well, guess you don't want to win crown. Right. And that was always a driver for me, was to be king, because that's where the theater is, or that's where the dreams are made. That's where the magic, for me, that was where I could make the most magic. Now I can still do it.
What's your favorite part about being king? What's your favorite part?
Finding somebody who has not been recognized for anything in their whole career and giving them an AOA. My first reign, we did 200 and something awards. Over half of them were AOAs. And of at least, I'd say half of those AOAs were people who had been in this society for over 10 years and had no AOA. They were out on the fringes. They were all these people that I had taken note of over the years, you know, working with me in the kitchens or working with me out on the warfield, or all the stuff, all the service, little things, you know, or they were given service by hospitality to somebody who came by, and they're like a war camp, and people come, you know, it's like a destination camp, and people go to their camp at war, but nobody ever acknowledges them, right? You know, it's like these fringies, and they talk about the royals in this way, right? And a really important movie to me as a kid, and it's, you know, the play, but really the movie that did it for me was Kenneth Branagh's Henry V. And like, I actually got to do this at Australia, where I did my Henry. I was Henry at night, nobody with me, going through the war camps, and people didn't know who I was. Like, I didn't have my crown, just had a hood, and it was like nobody realized it was like Edward King. And then I roll in there, like, you know, the next day and do an award in that same camp, right, or something. And that's the magic. That's the little things. And I wanted to prove that, like, not all, like, I had grown up kind of on the fringe. You know, I felt like I was on the fringe, and I came from there. I guess what my friend Magdalene, from in my household, she's the one that turned me into loving Knight's Tale, because at first I didn't really like it because I didn't like the modern music. And then she's like, but it's the SCA. And I was like, God, you're right. It is, like, right. You know, everybody shows up to their event and, like, they're blasting like metal, like Metallica or Pantera or something in there, or rap or whatever be it. And and then we're all basically participating in this thing. And sometimes you can change your stars, you know. And it was like that little thing, like, oh man, I'm gonna, you know, I gotta go cry when she got me going on it, you know. And it's like, that was it, right? To be that guy. I remember, like, I had another night, he was like, you're the guy that took the sword from the stone, right? And that, I never want to forget that I was the thing. So I'm always trying to find those stories. Always made sure that everything about being, you know, I want to always make sure when I give an award, they know why I'm giving the award, not you've come highly recommended.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, this thing you did, and this is something you do, and these are the other things that you do, and I know this stuff, and I'm talking to you, but that person way back there, 300 feet away, they can hear me telling what you do, but I'm talking to you.
So important to connect on both levels, right?
Yeah. Like, I want it to be standing room only at Australia Grand Court. I want everybody to come to see what I'm going to do. And they're going to hear. It's not going to be some private moment with the crown. You're going to hear why I'm giving this person this award. And I want everyone to know that word fame that I'm bestowing upon this person at this moment. Because that's the coin that we trade.
Right.
Word fame. Right? We don't get paid. The only thing we get paid, word fame is the coin that the word fame is the coin that we trade in the society. How rich do you want to be? How rich do you want to be? And it's my job to bestow that word fame as much as I possibly can, especially when I'm king. And that's my favorite part.
Cool. That's super cool. So, Kellen, do you have any questions, or should we look at the killing tool?
Let's look at the killing tool.
All right, let's look at your killing tool.
This sounds exciting.
Do you have your sword with you, or did I forget to tell you to do that?
You forgot to tell me.
Oh well. Can you just
I'm looking at the killing tool then?
Can you just describe how you put your sword together?
I got it. Oh, I can tell it. I'm not nearly as fancy as Uther. I've learned over the so believe it or not, I am the least refined probably fighter when it comes to swords. I know a lot of guys, but there are some consistencies always. Okay, I use a rubber hilt. Like, I use the vulcanized hilts. I went away from metal hilts a long time ago, mainly because I had fought with live steel swords, and I've always found live steel swords were far more tip heavy than hilt heavy. So I like that feeling. Okay.
Yep.
So you don't use a basket hilt.
I do use a basket hilt.
Oh, okay.
But it is the rubber plastic variety as opposed to metal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I also buy very big sticks, and I plane them down. So they have a tendency to be wide, like taller than they are thin. So they're as thin as they can be, but tall. Now that might be changing, because honestly, I think over the years I've been hitting people too hard like a mutant, and the force escalation in society is maybe getting out of control. I don't know. That's a philosophical discussion. But I may switch to a lighter stick, which may not be good for other people. I'm fighting with a real heavy stick that slows me down. So now you're gonna have a 280-pound guy like whipping a little skinny stick around. So, but there are other things I do. I use that. I don't use any metal down there. I have started using a trigger, just to kind of, because I've had some hand issues. I had really hurt this right hand, so I started using a trigger I do wrap it in tennis racket tape. So a trick I got from Uther, and I should have remembered it from my playing tennis days. And I don't use any duct tape on my stick. So it is 3 or 4 layers of just strapping tape with, and now the real trick to my tips is actually I use thrusting tips, and my foam is I bake my thrusting tips exactly the same way I would my fiber spear tips, right? So it is like, a few layers of foam, and then with strapping tape to kind of hold it down, and then I use pipe tape around it to really tighten it down. So, and then on top of that, then it's athletic tape. So the athletic tape causes the stick like a hockey tape. So it's a hockey, but that causes the sticking. The pipe tape actually causes it a lot. I mean, I can actually hit hard enough with my tip after I make it on the side for a flat snap to count. But also, like, your thrusting tip doesn't have to be tremendously hard, big. Some people just make it too big. It has to have just enough. Right. So I don't make them, and I also make them exactly the same dimensions as the sword itself. So sorry, didn't bring my stick.
No, it's fine. I forgot to remind you. It's cool. How long?
They're not tremendously fast. 36 inches. 36. Yeah. So I don't fight with a really long stick. I have experimented with even shorter, but I find for my wraps that I really like how the 36 feels, and that hits in the sweet fulcrum spot on the back, like where I want it to. I can always tell now, because of my blindness. I also I have a mark, kind of like a demarcation spot of like what's kind of like where I want the fulcrum to hit, and I'm really good at hitting that place. So I do run like the black electrical tape, and there's always like a little spot up on the top bit, and I always kind of imagine that's like, my target, and that's where I'm always going for. But that's just a physics thing, and for some reason I do manage to get there a lot. Yeah.
All right.
And I also, my lanyard though, that's the funny part, is like, it's just like a string, right? And I literally take it, and it's like strung up so tight that it's basically just locked in. So I don't really hold my sword at all until I hit. So everything's loose until it's not.
So do you like the trigger? Does it help you in that regard?
I still haven't figured out how to use it right, I think. Yeah. So okay. That's Uther is really working. So that's an experiment I still have not had much success in. Yes, I do. I think what I find though is I like to wear gloves because maybe I'm too violent. I don't know, but I do like padded glove or something, and I've had to switch to like a real thin glove, and then I've had to like cut my fingers off for the one so I could fit it through the leather. And I hate fidgeting with something to get it all. Like, I hate the feeling of like, I want to be that cool guy who can just grab his stick and like go fight, and I can't with the trigger because I gotta like get it in there and all that, and it's a pain in the ass.
You wear a padded glove and you have tennis racket tape on your handle?
Yeah. Oh, it's like I used to wear a Milek. Now I don't.
Street hockey thing.
Yeah, I've actually started. So I've switched to just using like really thin gloves, like landscaping gloves or anything like that.
Okay.
Mechanic glove. I haven't had a padded glove probably in a bit, but I've also been trying to play with using like actual demi gauntlets, because it's not something I've been wearing. Like, I mean, I really don't. When I say I don't fight with much armor on, I really mean I don't fight with much armor on. I like to be reminded that I got hit, because I'm angry if I get hit. It's my fault. I don't like to be hit at all. And Uther says I'm crazy because like I don't fight at all, like with anything on my legs. And I go, well, dude, I got like 28-inch thighs. It's fine. Like, I got a lot of muscle. And
that's an armor.
Yeah, like that's my armor. And same with my arms, right? Like and I always find like anything I put on them just feels like it's just a hindrance maybe. And maybe that's the sports side of me, but also like, I mean, I got my lamella and I look pimp, you know, that's like my thing. I got this lamella. It's good enough, you know.
One of I do these fighting calendars every year as gifts, and one of my favorite pictures, I don't even know if it's on the wall, but is you like with all the dust at Estrella in your yellow and blue with your lamlar on, like walking out of like the spear battle or something. It's epic.
Oh,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah,
I think I do. I was gonna look and see if I had it here next to me because I have a bunch of the pictures here, but I don't think I do. It might be on my wall at work.
So it's funny. We joke. We have this thing we play in camp. After at war, it's just like, let's tell the story of what Ed did that day because he won't remember. Because I don't remember battles. I remember usually the lay-ons and maybe it's over, and I'm usually just like, I'm still alive. I'm still alive, you know. But I can't. I'm not like so thick. I can't remember all the things that I did. It's just all these like blurry. It's like a Ridley Scott action movie or something, and it's like fast cam, and I can't see. You can't remember anything. So it wasn't until I read the book by Joe Abercrombie, the First Law, the first like that trilogy, that I kind of started to understand it, thanks to Uther. But that battle I remember a little bit too much of because it's probably the only time I've ever been scared. Like really, really scared in a battle. And it was because I actually couldn't see the outlines. Like all I could see, all of a sudden you just see a spear tip coming out of the dirt, and then it was in my face. So it was the most coolest, awesomest thing I've ever got to experience. And I don't know that I'd probably go through it again because it was super cool. And I know some people hate those moments. They hate the storms and all that stuff. And for me, like that night at Estrella was like one of the greatest nights of Estrella War ever. We had so much fun, and I understand like for some people it sucked. They had maybe they had tents that broke or whatever. But also like we had people that did that, and we just all piled in somebody else's tent, you know. And we're like, hey, we'll fix that banner pole. We'll fix that pole later, when we get home. And
that was 2011, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I was there.
I think that was 2011. It was like one of the last years at that site, and I'd never experienced anything like that. And you hear about that in like crusades and stuff. You hear about that kind of stuff. These dust storms swimming in.
Was that the site that was close to the prison? No. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I was there that one too. But I rented a B&B, so.
I mean, you probably chose correctly.
I did. It had its own pool. It was wonderful. Anyway.
Yeah. So, but I mean, I love the camping. Even we've had a couple really questionable years. Like 2 years at Australia was terrible, right? But I also had one of the best wars ever because I had brought with me like a cord and a half of wood, and I was like, well, it's just raining all the time. I made a Novgorod road in my camp in all the mud, right? Like it's just log all throughout the camp, so everybody could walk around. And there's all these pictures of the mud.
I have pictures of that camp too because I walked through that camp.
My camp, and it was like it's this total Viking camp, and we Maggie and Scott thought it was the coolest thing. So anytime I get a Maggie and Scott like this is awesome, that makes my war
success.
So, yeah.
All right. So I was going to ask you when we were talking about your sword and such. You'd mentioned in the beginning that the first time you came out, you fought greatsword. Did you continue fighting greatsword, and do you fight other weapon styles?
I fight every style. Okay, we didn't get that's a really fantastic question. The last style I ever learned to fight was sword and shield. Yeah, so I started greatsword, and love fighting with two-hand swords. Like I love bastard sword because it's this like me getting to be a samurai or a freaking Jedi Knight, and I had so much fun. And yeah, I mean, my first Estrella, I'm wearing like lacrosse pads and a great helm and like a tabard, just like I wish I still had these hockey gloves because I had the old cool leather hockey gloves. You know what I'm talking about? That still would work today. I don't know what I did with those hockey gloves. I got rid of those hockey gloves, and I hate myself for that. And then when I came back, it started really and I never missed Estrellas. I would show up to Estrella and I would fight like two sword a lot because I was like, I'm going to be Mad Mardigan, because I'm a kid.
Because Bill is awesome.
Yeah, right? I mean, like I want to fight with two swords and watch me do some cool shit. And then I continued on, and then there was a local war, and one of the knights was like, yo, dude, try this. And he like just gave me a rattan spear. And I was just like, I had been fighting rapier a lot. This was just rapier at 9 feet. So it was just an easy killing. I mean, it was just a murder. It was just me playing machine. I was just a sewing machine at that point. And I found my weapon. And that's what I'm most famous for. And Skepti was the one who was like, you're Odin's chosen, man. That's why you fight with the spear. You know, and I was like, you're right. And that was kind of it. And I started to fight sword and shield so I could learn to beat it. That was and I wanted to be able to beat it on the melee field. That was it. I was just like, how could I take advantage of these guys? And then I just started to kind of love it. Right. I mean, I'd heard you got to fight sword and shield if you want to be a knight or whatever. And I tell people all the time, man, hey, listen, if you want to be the best halberd fighter in the world, be the best halberd fighter in the world. I know Brand in the West, and he's a monster. Right. And like, there's plenty of guys that just could whip ass against a sword and shield fighter. I fell in love with sword and shield because all of a sudden it was just like the one thing. You fight two guys with greatsword, and the two guys almost all fight the same. Two Florentine fighters, they all fight the same. Two spearmen, they all kind of fight the same. It's like a duel at a bunch of feet. Sword and shield was like judo, right? Everybody was a little different, and there was all these different styles, and these things were different. And like one guy would fight with a heater, and one guy would fight with a winkle, and one guy would fight with a teardrop, and one guy would fight with a buckler. And yeah, it was like, this variation is so much fun, right? It was, and for my style of thing, which is like, I call my fighting pick a path to adventure. So that was it. I just like loved it, right? And it was like, okay, I'm gonna go to page 17 now. Sweet, right? Oh, page 21. Like, oh, I gotta fight the whole Hydra. Damn it, right? And that was it. That's like my fighting style. And the SC just like opened up for me when I did that. And I started with heater, and I won my first 2 crowns with heater. And then during my second reign, so during my first reign, I started playing with a round because I wanted to do the Royal Viking Weekend. And I had done like my Polish gimmick for a long, long time. And but Osa was, she's a Viking girl. So we did the Royal Viking Weekend up in Flagstaff for an event. And I had so much fun. And we had so much theater in that event, and that I could spend a whole night talking about it. But needless to say, I fought with somebody else's helmet, and I fought with like all Viking kit, and I fought with like a round shield, and I found a round shield wasn't for me. But Dongal gave me a teardrop shield that I fight with to this day. He gave one to me and Duke Aaron Graves. We both had one. Mine's dying. It's about to die, so I got to get new ones. But that was when I started switching to that. And when I did that, it actually opened me back up to my old style of fighting more. So I started to rotate my hips to the right leg forward, and all the things that are basically I'm known for fighting wise now are because of that. But yeah, sword and shield's my last trip. I love me some bastard sword though. I'm not kidding. Not like it's like. We have a tournament here, King's Champion, which is like multi-styles, and anytime it's like the 2-handed weapons, like glaive or I just start to drool. I mean, yeah, sword and shield is just like, it's easy, like for me, right? But I don't fight mass weapons in war for a reason, like because I know that I'll probably turn off more. Like with spear, at least I can keep the berserker in control, I think. Nice. Cool. But yeah, that's my story on fighting. I teach them all. Like I think if you can fight one standard style, you can fight them all. They're all the same, for some extent, So, but you should learn to fight them all, just at least so you can at least learn to beat them all.
Right.
A good understanding.
King's Champion, like we carried on that tradition in Artemisia. Our King's Champion is also multiple weapon styles.
Yeah. It's a really fun type of tournament. I mean, it goes a long time, but it's really fun.
Yeah.
All right. So we're going to do the final 10.
Okay.
The first question. If you could fight anyone in the world, who would it be?
Anyone?
Yeah.
Stefan Von Dressen. Fought him before. Would love to fight him again. Yeah. That's still probably my favorite fight I ever had. I mean, there's a few others I would love to get to fight Skepti again, or like Sven, because it's been too long. But Stefan Von Dressen was kind of like Mount Rushmore fight for me, and it was nice to split. Like we split fights. So
he's certainly a legend.
Yeah, he and I fight just similar enough that it was just so much fun for me. We both box essentially, so it was a really good time. I fight Uther all the time, otherwise I'd say him, right? You know, so.
Who would you like to see reign in your kingdom?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, my current crown prince and princess I'd like to see step up. I'd really love to see that.
Great.
Shots fired. I love them. No, I mean, I really was super excited for them to win, so I can't use them anymore. Oh, God. I'd like to see I'd love to see Dom win, my squire, or even Wolfgram. A couple of guys in my household. There's those two guys. Wolfgram is like a grand squire. Dom is the Plurican. He was the one that was like, he has all three, and he was laureled and pelicaned on the same day. I'd love to see what he could do with a reign.
Is he the guy that started the whole basic knight stuff thing?
Nope, that is Nathan. That's a guy out of Yuma, but I do love him. Yeah, because he made me. I did one of the first videos off that because it was like me and somebody else he challenged. He wanted to see it, so yeah. He's an Action Awesome believer. He's part of the church. We call it the Church of Action Awesome, or whatever. Action
Awesome. That's awesome. If you could talk fighting with anyone in the world for an hour, who would it be?
For me, there's a couple guys. It's probably two. It's Uther or Sean. Like whenever we get together and talk, that's those. If I could do it again though, it'd be Titus. He's not around anymore though, so that's why I want to do it. Like he stayed at my house for like a week, and that's all we did every night. We talked about Batman and fighting, and I would love for Titus to be. Titus was basically family. He was Osa's like other brother, and I miss him dearly, and I would love to be able to talk with him fighting one more time.
What is your favorite medieval-esque or period movie?
13th Warrior. Yeah, 13th Warrior. It's the SCA. Like hands down. Now, I mean, Conan's my favorite movie, okay? But 13th Warrior, that's the SCA, right? Because it's like every armor together is not right, but all the armor is right in of itself. But together, it's wrong. So it's the perfect anachronistic film, right? And for me, I watched that movie and I go, that's the SCA, like that and Knight's Tale. But for me, I like 13th Warrior more. I love the book Eaters of the Dead. So there's really nothing I could. And Joyous is a guy I want to camp with. I would follow. I'd love to go like on a crusade or some kind of, I'd love to go out on a saga hunt or something, monster hunt with Bullvide, aka Beowulf, but Joyous is such a great character, and yeah, that movie, that is the penultimate SCA film.
Cool. If you could add or subtract a rule from the rules of the list, what would it be?
Ooh. Okay, my kingdom has specific things, so and they added, so for the longest time I wanted the officer rule out, and it got out, and then they put in this rule that you have to they want your participation, but for me I want it that's it. So I already got the officer one out, so I want the you have to list out all the events that you've gone to for like the last 6 months. That's the rule I hate.
Is that to enter crown?
Fight crown?
Yeah, that's like a new thing. But it used to be you had to have been an officer in my kingdom, and I was like, well, that doesn't teach you anything about being king. I mean, there's nothing that teaches you to be king, but to be king.
Yeah, I think it's all that whole thing is about investment. It's
yeah. I mean, for me,
you're invested.
To fight in crown, you should be a member. You should live in your kingdom. I mean, unless you want to be a kingdom that allows outsiders, but I actually think it's harder to get your name and device submitted than it is to be an officer. So
that's true. That
takes more of a commitment.
No, it's not harder to get it submitted. It's harder to get it passed.
But all you have to do is have it submitted by the rules in Atenveldt. So, but we used to have this officer thing, and I really pushed hard to get that gone. And then somebody else put in another rule, and I don't like it. So That would be the rule I'd get rid of. Yeah, that one.
All right. What's your favorite tournament format?
Heroes bring their weapons. That's the first style of whatever style you want to bring. But I really love the Crown Tournament format and just best, double elimination. Get to the end. That's probably my favorite. Yeah. So just straight up best. I know some people really like the best 2 out of 3, and it's starting to win me over. But I still just like heroes know what weapons to bring to the field, and double elimination, just classic. At least for crowns. I did La Provadura. That was a blast, where it was like, a bunch of round robins to get in, but I wish the second tournament would have been bigger, because it was like only 1 from each field, and that kind of sucked. I only had 1 loss, so maybe that's why. I didn't make it into the final tournament, so I was in just a really tough pool.
Cool. I think they were all tough pools. I was there that year, and
that was a nasty year.
Yeah, the guy that won the tournament was in my pool. Not that I was even close to getting out of my pool, but
it was super fun though. Yeah. That's still one of the, that's again that thing we talked about. Like, where would you be able to get a memory like that if not for the SCA?
Yeah, that's true. Mm-hmm. What's your favorite event?
Australia War. Yeah, for me, that's I have always called it the War of Valor, the War of Heroes. The Outlands and Atenveldt, for the longest time, have been the opponents with each other, and no greater spirited opponent have I ever experienced than the Outlands warrior. And I've made some fantastic friends out of there, like Bella and stuff. And I mean, the whole Boy King. I mean, I did the whole Boy King with their king, and I put may have put an elk's head in his bed, and things like that. I mean, just the things we could do, or they gave me a walker and then I killed him with the walker. Yeah. So Australia, I mean, even when it's bad, it's still better than a day at work. And I mean, I've been to other wars. I mean, I've been to Pennsic, I've been to Gulf Wars. I've experienced the rain and the humidity and the otherness and the other stuff. And I'm always like, maybe I want a bit of an ordeal sometimes. And so I've never shied away from the inclement weather. And when the weather's great, it's the best there is. I dream of the huge wars that we used to have, and it saddens me that it doesn't have nearly the shine on that war that it used to.
Yeah, I miss those days too.
I do. And I think that the West Coast really needs it, the west side of the Mississippi. And I would love to really figure out a way to unite us all to do that again. Because those wars, when they were even, like, I mean, maybe I'm biased in the when I was king, I mean, some of those won, but even before, I mean, I remember coming up and some of those wars were just so big.
Yeah.
And and it's just, there was
in
some
the
politics.
90s.
There was some politics involved with the other kingdoms, and I understand some of the stuff, and I understand kind of some of the things that came down, and there was some bad behavior on all sides. And again, it's the one thing I wish people would could maybe let go of something maybe that's 10 or 20 years old when it comes to behavior. Because again, I'm not the person I was 10 or 20 years ago either, right? So,
right.
But to be
maybe enough time has passed that.
Yeah,
I know that Artemisia is more apt to come to Australia now than we were 10 years ago. We've really started to push again. So.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, we even here in Atenveldt have been like, we got to get a different site. I mean, and that's going to happen. So I want to bring back that magic, and that'll always be my favorite event. I plan my whole year around it.
All right. If you could have any helmet, regardless of cost, what kind would it be?
Ugo and Vryn would tag team and make me a helmet. But it would probably be, honestly, it would probably be like the Kurgan helmet from Highlander, because that's still like my thing. I recently did a movie last year in November, and I was laughing because I was listening to some behind the scenes footage, and I was like, wow, I'm really literally invoking my inner Kurgan like the whole time I'm doing this, and like I actually had showed Hugo. He's one of the only people I knew about it, as I was sending him stuff from the set, and it was literally like, I'm like so much like, I'm the killer here, like it was like, I'm Clancy Brown, So yeah, it would be those two guys. Absolutely. I've always told my wife, I'm like, if I had as much money as I could or whatever, Hugo would make me a crown. I would just say, I want you to do your version of a Viking or something kind of thing. But yeah.
It's Saturday morning at Estrella, and several people want to talk to you about last night. What did you do?
I was around my fire. So my camp, I'm probably, what I was around the night before, I was probably telling stories and tell people to get in my belly or something, like I'm Papa Ed. And we probably drank way too much mead at my camp. And maybe I was just gesticulating so much, and maybe I smacked somebody's cup and knocked it down. There's like 1,000 things that I could have done, but they would have been in my camp. Because that's like where everybody luckily come to my camp, and I just we're telling stories. So maybe it was I told some hilarious stories. Maybe I streamed together more F-bombs in a sentence than I'd ever heard, which happens the more I get in my cups too. So yeah, that's when the kids go to bed and Dad starts to curse. That's when Captain America goes away.
Who's your favorite fight ever?
It would be that's tough because like for the longest it was like probably a tie between maybe Sven, Skepti, and Uther, right? But then when I finally got to fight Dresden, that's still one of my favorite pastas of all time. I don't know if I could pick one because they like there was like my coming of age, kind of like what I consider my coming of age time when I fought Uther, and I was able to give it as good as I got, like in his own kingdom too. And I was able to like win as much. Or like one of my favorite memories is with like Skepti, where I fought him one day and I beat him up, and then he came looking for me the next day and just literally kicked the shit out of me. Right. And then I went and won crown like 3 weeks later. My first crown. So, and I was ready. In a lot of ways, that moment is defining for me because I actually was like ready to quit because he whipped me so bad. I was ready to quit. And he was like, no, man, no. And he like picked me up and like just dusted me off. And then I proceeded to, start to lay some stick in, it could have been him led me, but I also just like kind of got over whatever he was doing. I don't know. So many, that's the beautiful thing about the SCA. How can you pick one?
Right. It's hard.
It's so hard. I mean, I just got to go fight Sean last May, and we actually were up in Canada fighting, and that was super awesome. And I got to fight like a bunch of those fighters, and like they were just amazing. Like Jeremy Bell, he's so much fun.
Yeah,
don't ask me to try to pronounce his name.
Viger.
Huh?
Viger.
Yeah, it's just so hard for me. I don't know why. I got to be drunk. The drunker I get, the better I get it out. But I love him, and like there's so many of those just monsters up there. Like Corsac, he's just fantastic.
Corsac is super fun.
Yeah, that's a guy I'd love to. If I want to see a guy in the SCA win crown, I want to see that dude win.
He came.
I love. I know. I see him like he's like, let me in. He's so like he's just there.
Yeah, he'll do it. Just a matter of time.
Yep.
And then
Absolutely.
The bonus question is, who is the cleanest fighter in your kingdom?
Cleanest. Sir Nader.
Okay.
Like when he's on, he's just a monster. I have said to him, I've known him all his life. I got him involved in this stuff. He is the LeBron James of the SCA. He could be. He's the most physically gifted person. He's just so, and when he's just so pretty to watch when he fights. God, I would love to see him win crown now that I think about it. Cool. Oh yeah. Put that brother on the phone. That would be so much fun. No, yeah. I changed my vote. I want Nader. Damn it.
Them. You can
Yeah, I would literally rush the field, and I would tackle him and then pick him up and carry him around. Yeah, it would be the big, but I would do that for my boys too. So yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time tonight and for talking to us. And it's been,
yeah, it was my pleasure. I had a fantastic, it was an honor. This was the best hour and 45 minutes I think I've spent in 5-6 months. So yeah,
good.
I can't.
It's the closest we can get to sitting around a fire and talking, I think.
Yeah, this was fantastic. Yeah, and we could have easily gone, I think, another couple hours.
Yeah, my dog.
I did warn you. I can talk though. I can see my dogs. My dogs are trying to get to me through the door.
My dog has laid down next to me and started her farts of you need to get off the computer. So I'm like,
you should know better, my cat.
Anyway,
old dog farts.
So tomorrow I'll be talking to Duke Timothy of Arundel of Ethelmark, and that should be super cool. He's a really cool guy. He's the guy that put together Adult Swim, one of my favorite events.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, so it'll be cool.
Someday
thank you so much, Your Grace, and thank you, Kelwin, for co-hosting with me tonight, and we'll see you all next time.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.